What's up, guys? Welcome to Worship Life. Today we're going to answer the question, can you build a complete guitar rig for 150 bucks? Let's find out. All right, guys, we're going to answer that question. Can you build a quality, gig-worthy guitar rig for $150? That means everything except for the guitar and a cable to plug into. Is that even possible? If you look at all the players that you really admire and what they're using, what you'll find is that it's expensive. It just is. And if you want really good stuff, paying a lot of money for it is a great way to go. There's some expensive things that aren't good, I think, but generally, if you pay more money, you get a better product. So for $150, really, what can you get? Some of you may be thinking, oh, well, he's just talking about, a Zoom multi-effects or a Digitech multi-effects or something that does everything for $100, for $200, and he's just going to sell it. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a legit pedals on a pedal board. Each thing does one thing, $150, quality tone that you just heard in the intro there. So here, let's just go over to that screen, and you can see it right now. That's it. It's three things. 2 pedals and a DI box. And that created everything that you just heard. And I think it can do everything that you would need on a Sunday morning. Might be thinking, oh, that's crazy. How could you get that many sounds out of that few of pedals? And I'll show you. So first of all, we're skipping an amp. Most of the time in churches, you don't need an amp. You can go direct. And so in order to go direct, there's 2 parts that you need. You need an amp sim and you need a cab sim. So in this case, the AC Tone is an amp and a cab sim. But what happens is with these cheaper pedals and cheaper multi-effects units, and in general multi-effects units across the board, unless you pay a lot of money for a multi-effects unit and go straight for Axe Effects or Helix or something like that, what happens is I found the amp simulation is actually pretty good, but the cab simulation is really bad. And it's really important to understand that, because what you can do is get a different cab sim and then use that as your bass tone. For example, let me show you. So I'll turn off the reverb here. So this is just with the AC tone and through the DI box. This is my clean tone. And it's a little bit dirty, but that's as clean as I'll ever go. And then, so this real secret weapon here is this Behringer Ultra G DI. It goes for $40 new, and you can get it used for 20, 25, 30 bucks. And I think it is a super, super important thing. Let me just show you the difference between having it with the cab sim on this DI box and with it off. That's with it on. That's with it off. So it gets real crunchy. And the problem is you can dial out the drive on it, and it'll sound great clean, just AC tone. But once you start pushing it, and especially if you put other drive pedals in front of it or anything like that, or even if you just turn up the drive on the AC tone itself, it just gets super crunchy and sounds really bad, and it doesn't have like the fullness you want. It just has frequency clipping. And so it's super important to have the cab and the amp. That is the most important thing by far. If you do not have a good bass sound of your guitar that can also be overdriven, not just a clean tone, then you will not have a good sound ever, no matter how many pedals you throw at it. And if you just buy a regular amp, that will take care of it generally. It'll be both, the cab and the amp head are usually together, especially on cheaper units, but then you can, of course, buy them separate. But when you're going direct, it is so important to have a nice cab sim. If you just go with a cheaper one, you're gonna never be happy. So that is our general tone, is the AC Tone and the Behringer Ultra G. And when you use that, you can get anything from real clean to real overdriven. Oh, let's turn that cab sim back on. And so if you see, I have an option knob sitting right on the drive. And so that's so I can adjust it with my foot on the fly instead of drive pedals. And so, my clean sound will be right about there. Crunch is right around noon. And then full on lead lines will be right up around 80%. And so you can just throw that on, the option knob on there, instead of buying multiple drive pedals or boost pedals or whatever you would use to overdrive your amp. And I think it just works great. And then the last piece of the puzzle, and I think is the most difficult effect to do on a budget, is reverb. For worship guitar in particular, reverb is the most important effect. Hands down, it's what makes it sound, smooths everything out. It's what makes you get an atmospheric sound for communion. And so that is the one thing that I say you have to spend a decent amount of money on, because there's nothing cheap that is even remotely good for any sort of ambient guitar playing. The cheapest thing that I would ever use is, a Hall of Fame or a Hall of Fame Mini by TC Electronic. And you can get those for, the Hall of Fame Mini is like $50 used, and the Hall of Fame, the full one, is like $70 to $100 used. But the thing is, what I have here is the most overlooked, the most underrated reverb pedal of all the time. It is the Source Audio Dimensions. And before the Ventress came out, which is, kind of the top dog of reverb right now, this was Source Audio's reverb pedal. And when the Ventress came out, and it's like 400 new or whatever it is, this was selling for $190 new. And when the Ventress came out, they cleared out their stock for $100 new. And so now that kind of set the used price right around $100. So you can pick up one of these things for $100-ish on Reverb or some other used website, and it is so amazing. Let me just show you in my normal reverb sound. And so the really interesting thing is, when you get into looking at reverbs, one of the really interesting things that cheaper reverbs don't have is long decay. Even really nice multi-effects pedals like the Helix max out at about 10 seconds of decay. I'd say the Hall of Fame on even their longest reverb probably maxes out around 10 seconds of decay. And so what happens is if you want to get like a fuller reverb sound, you're going to have to turn the mix up, and then you start losing guitar tone volume, and then it still decays faster than you want right at the beginning. So if you want that like full ambient sound, you're just not going to be able to get it with a cheaper reverb pedal. And so what's really interesting about the Dimensions Reverb, it has a couple really awesome features. One is that the decay is probably around 20 seconds or so. I don't know, 15, 20, something like that. But you can do it on every single reverb type, which it has 10 or so, even spring reverb. And then every single reverb type, you're able to change the treble and the bass of the reverb, and also add modulation to every single reverb. And so that's a feature that's usually on like really expensive ones like the Big Sky and other pedals like that. But the ability to do that lets you get a really nice rich reverb that sits super nice in the mix. So that's about it. You know, it also has 2 presets, which is really, really cool for a pedal in this price range. And so I feel like with this setup, I could literally go out on Sunday morning and not even need anything. The next things I would add to this board, if I was to go from here, would be a compressor and then and also a delay pedal. But I feel like those things are icing on the cake. Hello? All right, so to close this out and show you what I mean of what this thing can really do of different sounds, I just want to go through all the different things real quick that I would use. So first, let's do some swells just to show what it would. And I'm not good with volume pot swells. I usually use a pedal, so forgive me. So you get the idea. Bump up the decay a decent amount. Put your mix at like 50-60% and just go with it. I always use the neck pickup to give it like a fatter sound for when I would be doing swells. All right, so let's go to just an ambient tone. Really similar to swells, except for I would use a little bit less decay and a little bit less drive. Something like that. All right, let me go to like a rhythm tone. I would go to, on my reverb, I have the first preset. That's kind of like my smaller room-ish reverb that I would leave on all the time. And the number 2 is my bigger reverb. And then depending on the moment, I just adjust the decay up and down for whatever moment it is. So if I'm going to like a rhythmy tone, be something like this. the drive for a full on. So I think you get the idea. And so that is my cheapest that I would ever go. I don't think that there's even a way to do it possibly cheaper and still achieve the quality of tone that you're chasing. I really don't. You don't. I think this is the cheapest cab sim that still sounds amazing. I think this is the cheapest amp simulator that still sounds really good. You know, it emulates in the a Vox AC15 or a Vox AC30. And this is, to me, the best value for a reverb ever. You could get a cheaper reverb, but I promise you, you won't be happy with it. I've used all of the reverbs that are cheaper than this, and you will not be happy. And so this together is my budget guitar rig. So thanks for watching.